In the pantheon of legends of great American bad guys, one of the most endearing stories is that of Bonnie and Clyde. Their story is a Depression-era version of William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, with a distinctive American twist. As some of the last gunfighters to ride out of the old American Southwest, Bonnie and Clyde found their immortality at the end of a gun.
Well, Bonnie and Clyde were what I call two Depression desperados. They came up in a time, in the 1929, 1930, 31, when the Depression was on. There was a lot of poverty. Both of them were living in West Dallas at the time. Bonnie was working in a cafe in West Dallas, and ironically was serving and fraternizing with a couple of the men who would later hunt her down and take her life.
Clyde and Bonnie met at Buster's house. Buster had married Edith Ray Clay, and Edith had a brother, Clarence. And Clarence came over to Buster's house one night, or one afternoon rather, and Bonnie was there seeing Buster about something, I don't know what. And Clarence had a little guy with him that had big ears and liked hot chocolate. And the guy was Clyde.
Bonnie was kind of enamored with Clyde, and of course Clyde thought Bonnie was cute. She was very petite, very pretty young lady.
That was in 1929 when they met. And Buster said in later years, he says, when those two saw each other, you could hear the sparks fly right there. Clyde was a little fella. He stood 5'5" and weighed 125. And Bonnie was a little bitty gal. She was 4'10" and weighed 85. So many times they were mistaken for high school kids.
Clyde actually began his life of crime before he met Bonnie. Bonnie, more or less, I think, would like for him to have stopped his life of crime and gone straight and gotten a decent job. And of course, jobs were few then and scarce, and it was probably hard for him. And it was just, it was just an easy life to go out and steal and burglarize or whatever he needed to do to get money.
Bonnie was a good girl, but Ted said she had one problem: bad taste in men. Witness Roy Thornton, her husband, who was in the pen when she was killed, and he was killed 3 years later in a prison break, or attempted prison break. And then Clyde, and we know what her run with Clyde was.
Clyde just wasn't going to stop his petty thievery and his escalating life of crime. And Bonnie, apparently at some time, just accepted the fact that that's the way he was, and she wasn't going to change him. Clyde was incarcerated at one time in Texas there, and Bonnie allegedly smuggled a gun into him, into the jail, so that he could break out, which he did, and of course was later recaptured.
He went down on 7 different counts, and they ranged all the way from petty theft through car theft.
Clyde was eventually put into prison at Eastham Prison in Texas, which at that time was called the Bloody Ham. The inmates that had been through there had the nickname for Eastham Prison as the Bloody Ham. And it was just a brutal place that the prisoners went that a lot of them didn't come out alive. And according to the story, that Clyde there was in Eastham in prison and was savagely raped by another prisoner, whom he later killed in prison. And that pretty much set the tone for the rest of his life, that he was never, ever going to be caught and sent back to prison. He was never going to go back to prison. Bonnie was arrested and actually put in jail herself, and stayed in jail for, I'm sure, for several months. And when she got out, she and Clyde reunited. At that point, they began living on the road, and that's all they were constantly on the run. Clyde would rob filling stations, maybe a bank here and there, a Piggly Wiggly store, get enough money to make it for a little while, and steal a car here and there. It just boils down to it's the Southwest meets William Shakespeare. It's Romeo and Juliet of the Southwest. It's 2 star-crossed lovers who meet in a time of turmoil and social upheaval and poverty and hopelessness, fall in love and take the only path, I guess, that they really knew to take. You know, Clyde had chosen his path, Bonnie followed him. And she knew how it would end, he knew how it would end, and they didn't know when, but they knew it wouldn't be long. They knew they didn't have a lot of time together.
Merry Christmas! Y'all are all invited over to the Vidalia Riverfront Christmas display to help keep the tradition alive. Get up in the car with your loved ones and cruise on through the Christmas cheer. It's free and open every night of the week from 5 to 10:30 p.m. through January 1st. Remember, it's happening on the Vidalia Riverfront. Merry Christmas from the city of Vidalia. Big Mama's Southern Style Barbecue Catfish and More introduces the Working Man's Lunch. Sandwich of your choice, a side and a drink for $4.99. Supersize your sandwich for $1 more. Big Mama's Family Deal feeds a family of 4 for $5 per person. Be sure to pre-order your tender, succulent smoked holiday ham and your tasty whole smoked turkeys before it's too late. And don't forget the side dishes. Good eats at great prices at Big Mama's Southern Style Barbecue Catfish and More on John R. Junkin Drive in Natchez. The Hampton Inn and Suites is your home away from home in downtown Natchez. With spacious rooms equipped for comfort, dreamy Cloud9 bedding, and a full hot breakfast every morning, the warm and friendly staff will make you feel like family. Located across from the Natchez Visitor Center, just blocks from downtown, the Hampton Inn and Suites is as convenient as it is comfortable. And they're ready for business at the Hampton Inn and Suites. Everyone agrees pets get the best of care at the Miss Lou Veterinary Clinic. Dr. Debbie and Dr. Veronica and their caring staff can treat any pet, large or small, domestic or exotic. They offer traditional and non-traditional treatments to heal your loved one as fast as possible. Hospitalization and intensive care are available, as well as grooming and best friends boarding when you need someone you can depend on. And they carry a complete line of pet meds and nutritional products at the Miss Lou Veterinary Clinic on the Faraday-Vidalia Highway. Trace City Toyota, home of the most popular cars and trucks in the world. They sell new and used automobiles, and they're ready to deal. They've got certified used Toyotas, almost new cars with warranties at pre-owned prices, and other great deals on all used vehicles on the lot of all makes and models. Don't make concessions. Get the car you want at a great price at Trace City Toyota on Devereaux Drive in Natchez. The line between good and bad has always basked in the shadow of a large gray area. In the 1920s and 30s, the American Southwest was still wide open. Corruption and despair ran rampant. Justice was swift and complete, and in our not-so-distant past, was often dealt out at the end of a gun barrel. Gun battles commanded the national press and captured the public imagination.
Times were hard. That was the Depression. And you doing good if you could hustle beef stew back in those days.
Now, Bonnie and Clyde, you have to remember, robbed mostly gas stations and stores, burglarized Piggly Wiggly's, I think, was a favorite target of theirs. They didn't rob a lot of banks. The movies kind of portrayed them as bank robbers, but they were just petty thieves. I mean, just stealing enough to get by for another few weeks until they could get enough money to get a room somewhere and a meal.
Clyde didn't take more than what he needed. Clyde didn't like robbing banks. He said that gave you too much press and everything in the newspapers. And he didn't like robbing banks. Raymond Hamilton, who he broke out of East Ham prison, was the one that liked to rob banks. He wanted to be the big bad Dillinger of the Southwest. The reason they got so much heat on them and everything was twofold. One, Clyde broke Raymond Hamilton out of East Ham prison down there. And while doing so, there was a guard shot. Lee Simmons was the director of Texas Department of Corrections at that time. And he was one of these old boys, that don't happen on my watch. And he got in heat about it, and he got the governor to create 2 special commissions. Special investigator for the director of Texas Department of Corrections. And he got them filled with 2 retired Texas Rangers, Frank Hamer and Manny Gall. Smoot Smith, the sheriff there in Dallas, had already put Bob Alcorn, the chief criminal deputy, and Ted on the case back in January of '33, when Malcolm Davis, the Fort Worth deputy sheriff, was killed over there at Lily McBride's house, just down the street from where the Barrows were. Well, Ted was my dad, and he was the youngest of the 6 officers that participated in their capture down there. Now, he knew Clyde from back when they were Western Union messengers together. And he knew Bonnie when Ted was a special delivery messenger for the post office department. And he was working out of the postal annex there on Houston Street, which was straight across the street from the American Cafe, where Bonnie was a waitress and she'd serve his lunch every day. So he knew both of them before they went bad. Then what really got all of law enforcement after him was Easter 1934, when they killed those 2 highway patrolmen up there at Grapevine. Clyde had a racetrack that he was running on. And he'd come north out of Dallas, and he'd go up through Oklahoma, Kansas, on up into Nebraska sometimes, over into Wisconsin, so back over in there and everything. They were known to have had shopping sprees in Chicago.
If you committed a robbery in Texas, you could flee into Louisiana, and the authorities could not chase you across state lines if you made it across state line. And there was no communication at that time to track them. So they went from state to state committing crimes, and basically over about a 2-year period before they were finally tracked down and assassinated.
Ed said that Clyde had a dadgum road map in his mind. Says he knew where every road was and everything, knew where every pig trail and cow trail was. He says you couldn't hem the boy up. If you did hem him up, or if you snapped on him first, you had a war on your hands, and the little man, as Ted called him, the little man knew how to wage war. The BAR was his weapon of choice. And that BAR will lay down 20 rounds in less than 2 seconds. That's a lot of lead, especially lead that'll go all the way through a car.
They were in 2 big shootouts, one in Joplin, Missouri, and one in Dexter, Iowa. And both of those shootouts were because local officials became suspicious of their activities, showed up to find out what was going on, and they just immediately opened fire on the law officers. Most of the people that they killed were law enforcement officers. They were just super paranoid about the law. Back in those days, times were hard and people didn't have anything, and they kind of looked to movie stars and gangsters as kind of a release, I guess, or something to look up to and to say, okay, these guys, they're robbing from the banks who robbed from us. They foreclosed on our homes and taking our land, and so banks and financial people weren't real popular at that time. So Bonnie and Clyde and people like that were looked on sometimes romantically. They were young in love. They were on their own. I think it was kind of a revenge for people to think, they're out robbing the folks that robbed us.
From ties to tiaras, the Ford line and Towers collection has affordable luxury in downtown Natchez. The Towers collection offers one-of-a-kind gifts, jewelry, seasonal ornaments, and antique collectibles. And it's now the exclusive home of Bass Pecan products. The Ford line features fine menswear and accessories, like the exclusive J. Wesley Signature collection of shirts, Italian silk ties, Jack Black, superior men's skincare products, and other unique gift ideas for men. Customer service is always a priority at the Towers collection and the Ford line. Everyone agrees pets get the best of care at the Miss Lou Veterinary Clinic. Dr. Debbie and Dr. Veronica and their caring staff can treat any pet, large or small, domestic or exotic. They offer traditional and non-traditional treatments to heal your loved one as fast as possible. Hospitalization and intensive care are available, as well as grooming and best friends boarding when you need someone you can depend on. And they carry a complete line of pet meds and nutritional products at the Miss Lou Veterinary Clinic on the Faraday-Vidalia Highway. Merry Christmas! Y'all are all invited over to the Vidalia Riverfront Christmas display to help keep the tradition alive. Get up in the car with your loved ones and cruise on through the Christmas cheer. It's free and open every night of the week from 5 to 10:30 p.m. through January 1st. Remember, it's happening on the Vidalia Riverfront. Merry Christmas from the city of Vidalia. Trace City Toyota, home of the most popular cars and trucks in the world. They sell new and used automobiles and they're ready to deal. They've got certified used Toyotas, almost new cars with warranties at pre-owned prices, and other great deals on all used vehicles on the lot of all makes and models. Don't make concessions. Get the car you want at a great price at Trace City Toyota on Devereaux Drive in Natchez. The legend of Bonnie and Clyde are part of the American quilt, not so much because of who they were, but because of what they represent. Their devotion to each other, their love of family, and their quest for a better life still captures our hearts and minds today.
It's got all the catch-alls in it. The guts, glory, everything, wouldn't quit each other. It puts Romeo and Juliet to shame.
You know, these were two kids, and that's what they were. They were kids. They were very, very young, living in a time of desperation, poverty, hopelessness. Probably had that instinct. Clyde did specifically to go out and steal. It was an easy life, but the hopelessness, poverty of that era, and Bonnie fell into it with him because she loved him. And he loved her. Obviously, their base of operations was Texas. That's where their family was. They always returned to their families. They were still very family-oriented.
They were going from family to family, and they knew that if they watched the family members and such as that, they could eventually get them. Henry Methvin was one of the 4 tag-alongs that came out of Easttown when Clyde broke Raymond Hamilton out. They had pulled in over there on the 20th of May at Shreveport to the Majestic Cafe. And Henry was inside getting 3 drinks and 3 sandwiches to go. And Clyde and Bonnie were parked at the curb. If Clyde had sat still, he probably wouldn't have gotten bounced. The constable came by, and as the constable gets off up past him, Clyde backs out, wheels out, and rabbits and takes off. The constable wheels around trying to catch Clyde. Henry walked over, parted the curtain, saw what was going on, shut the curtain, turned around and told the people, says, "I'll be right back." He stepped out the door and poof, he's gone. They don't see him anymore. And constable, of course, can't catch Clyde. And constable reported it to the sheriff, who in turn reported it to Dallas. 4 hours after that happened, the 4 Texas officers pulled into the Shreveport Inn. When they called Dallas, and Dallas told them, said, "See the man, he's got something for you." They went down and interviewed the people at the Majestic. Bob Alcorn looked over at Ted and he said, "Okay, they're separated now and we know where they'll be going." because they knew where old man Methvin's house was down here, and they also knew where the John Cole house was that Clyde and Bonnie had been hiding out in. Only thing was they just hadn't been able to catch them there. So they go over to Arcadia to the Bienville Parish Sheriff's Department, and they tell Henderson Jordan what they knew and all that. He said, yeah, he says, I know that old man. He's wood hauler. He's rough, tough, raw, not really well thought of, but he hadn't done anything, so I haven't been able to get hold of him. But I know where he lives down there, and I also know that road down through there and know the best spot to set up. So they went down there and set up. And at 4 o'clock the morning of the 23rd, here comes old man Methvin out in his truck. He's looking for Henry because Henry hadn't come home yet. They took him out there 75 foot behind the firing line and handcuffed him to a pine tree.
And put his vehicle out on the side of the road. They knew Bonnie and Clyde would be coming by and see the vehicle and think that there was a problem, and they would stop to see about it. And according to them, they set up this ambush point and waited overnight into the next morning, and late in the morning, sometime before noon, had just about decided to call it off when they heard the vehicle coming down the road. And again, I think Clyde was driving a V8 Ford, and Ted Hinton knew the sound of that vehicle and said, that's probably them. And as they approached, and Ted Hinton again knew them from West Dallas, so he was one that could positively eyewitness identify them as they pulled up, and he did identify them as being Bonnie and Clyde. Supposedly someone yelled a warning to give up, to throw your hands up. Law enforcement officers, immediately Clyde went for his gun, which was a 12 gauge Winchester lever action shotgun, much like this one, with a sawed off barrel that he kept between his legs. And before he could raise the shotgun up, the bullets began flying. In that day and time, with the crime wave, with there's still a Wild West mentality in the Southwest. So yeah, the people, nobody argued the fact that that's what had to be done. Even the family members who held a little bit of animosity because of the way it went down, they knew that's the way it was going to end, and they knew that's what had to happen. And I don't know that there were really any hard feelings between the Barras and the Parkers and law enforcement.
To find out more about Bonnie and Clyde, motor over Shreveport Way and check out the Ambush Museum in Gibson, Louisiana, or head over to Dallas and look up Ken Holmes and Southwestern Historical Inc. They've got the whole story and can show you where it all took place. Get out and experience the American experience firsthand.
Hi, I'm Ginger Highland, and yes, it's time for Christmas in Natchez. As you can see, I'm already decorating for the jeweled Christmas at the Towers. You know, it takes 5 weeks to put all this jewelry up, but it's going to be spectacular this year, and so are the rest of the events at Christmas in Natchez. Here's the brochure for this year, and we've got lots of new events. The main two, ice skating and fireworks. We're really excited about that. And as I look through the brochure of this year's events, our kickoff is on November the 25th. That's the day after Thanksgiving. And of course, we'll have the lighting of the tree, and we'll have music, and we'll have the turkey gumbo cook-off. On Saturday, we'll have the turkey trot. We're going to have lots of events at some of the wonderful houses here in Natchez. So Stanton Hall is going to have something, and so is Longwood. It will be lit once again. Melrose is going to have something out at the park this year, and we're going to have candlelight tours of the Burn. There's going to be the library, House of Tours. Cover to Cover is going to have exciting book signings. Magnolia Hall is going to have carriage rides and candlelight tour that we'll have here also at the Towers. You know, there are lots of events this year, Some of them will be free, some of them there'll be tickets. And I suggest you go to our website, which is christmasinnatchez.com, or contact Natchez Pilgrimage Tours, or go to the Visitor Center, and they'll give you updates on what's going on. I hope you'll be able to join us for some of the events this year. I think it's going to be very special. And for those of you who live here in Natchez, remember, put out an extra string of lights this year and make it a very happy season for us all.
Big Mama's Southern-style barbecue, catfish, and more introduces the Working Man's Lunch. Sandwich of your choice, a side and a drink for $4.99. Supersize your sandwich for $1 more. Big Mama's Family Deal feeds a family of 4 for $5 per person. Be sure to pre-order your tender, succulent smoked holiday ham and your tasty whole smoked turkeys before it's too late. And don't forget the side dishes. Good eats at great prices at Big Mama's Southern-style barbecue, catfish, and more on John R. Junkin Drive in Natchez. Trace City Toyota, home of the most popular cars and trucks in the world. They sell new and used automobiles, and they're ready to deal. They've got certified used Toyotas, almost new cars with warranties at pre-owned prices, and other great deals on all used vehicles on the lot of all makes and models. Don't make concessions. Get the car you want at a great price at Trace City Toyota on Devereaux Drive in Natchez. Merry Christmas! Y'all are all invited over to the Vidalia Riverfront Christmas display to help keep the tradition alive. Get up in the car with your loved ones and cruise on through the Christmas cheer. It's free and open every night of the week from 5 to 10:30 p.m. through January 1st. Remember, it's happening on the Vidalia Riverfront. Merry Christmas from the city of Vidalia. The Hampton Inn & Suites is your home away from home in downtown Natchez. With spacious rooms equipped for comfort, dreamy Cloud9 bedding, and a full hot breakfast every morning, the warm and friendly staff will make you feel like family. Located across from the Natchez Visitor Center, just blocks from downtown, the Hampton Inn & Suites is as convenient as it is comfortable. And they're ready for business at the Hampton Inn & Suites. Everyone agrees pets get the best of care at the Miss Lou Veterinary Clinic. Dr. Debbie and Dr. Veronica and their caring staff can treat any pet, large or small, domestic or exotic. They offer traditional and non-traditional treatments to heal your loved one as fast as possible. Hospitalization and intensive care are available, as well as grooming and best friends boarding when you need someone you can depend on. And they carry a complete line of pet meds and nutritional products at the Miss Lou Veterinary Clinic on the Faraday-Vidalia Highway.